first ran into it, it was a beautiful video, and so many great memories there. A couple things to point out is I'm very fortunate, and I do have a first edition basketball card already that your dad gave me. It's at my house. And Bobby Valentine is here correctly pointed out that he actually received your dad's guide, first edition of the guide when he was playing in the Major League. So, as Dan said, my name is Jim Small, and I've had the honor of, for the past 14 years, being able to call Wayne my friend. Today's a special day. It's a day that I think Wayne would love, although I think he'd be a little embarrassed with all the kerfuffle. But it's a chance for us to all get together and to share our love for somebody who's touched all of our lives so deeply. All of us in this room have Wayne stories. I'm very fortunate, and I can share one of mine. You probably don't know the details of this story, but I think when you hear it, you'll all say Sasaga, of course. That's Wayne, because I'm sure he's touched all of you in a similar way. I came to Japan in August of 2003, and I essentially knew two people that spoke English, Marty and Wayne. And to tell you how best describe that relationship when I first got here, I'd say we were acquaintances. I think that's best described by the fact I did everything I could to now pronounce their last names. And I had no idea if it was Kuehnert, and don't even get me started on how to pronounce Gracz. I had no clue. But in those early months, it was bewildering. I was a deer in the headlights. I had come here. We had an office in Hibiya. Couldn't hire any employees because we hadn't set up our KK yet. So I was alone. I could speak basically. I could say Namabiru. That was the only Japanese I could speak. And I wasn't really that welcome. The sports marketing agencies here were afraid I was going to steal some of their business. And that wasn't even close to what the NPB felt because they thought I was the blackest of the black ships coming in to take players back to the major leagues. I had 3 kids under the age of 7, and I was wondering if I made the biggest mistake of my life, bringing my kids and my wife to this bewildering, strange place. But then there was Marty, and there was Wayne. Shortly after I arrived here, they were nice enough to invite me out to lunch. And we went to a little Italian place not far from here, underneath the railroad tracks. And we talked. We talked baseball. We talked Japan. They taught me the things I would need to survive in Japan. Things like when someone says hi, it doesn't necessarily mean they understand what you're saying or they agree with it, but they understand it. That when somebody kind of sucks through their teeth, that's a Japanese way of saying, no way is it going to happen. And that there are like 8 different kinds of ramen, but Hakata ramen is the best. So they took my mind off my troubles, and they made me feel like, okay, maybe this can work out. The first year or 2 that I was here, we did this once a month. We got together, and probably the worst kept secret in this room is that Marty Kyokera loves to talk. Probably the second worst kept secret is so do I. And so these lunches invariably were Marty and I dominating the conversation, often talking over each other. And Wayne would take everything in, listen to everything, taking intermediate bites of his cheeseburger, meat, cheese, bun only, nothing else. And then he would just wait until the blowhards were done blowing hard, and he would say, always the most pertinent and germane part of the conversation. He would just sit back and he would come up with something that was just spot on. And that's who Wayne was. He didn't need the attention. He didn't need to speak loud to be heard. Wayne was confident, but he was never arrogant. He exuded calmness even when the waters were choppy around all of us. He chose to have meaningful conversations instead of making superficial pronunciations. He earned respect, but he never demanded it. Wayne provided friendship and kindness to me and everyone in this room. His soul was wise and it was kind. It was filled with integrity and it was filled with decency. And all of us benefited from that soul and from being his friends. I can never repay him for what he did to make me feel welcome in those early days. And he did it for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. He got nothing out of it. After Marty moved to Sendai, those lunches became fewer and far between. We would get together maybe once a year. I'd see him at the ballpark. And maybe that was okay, because over the period of the last 14 years, I'd found my way in Japan. And just like Marty, and just like Wayne, I fell in love with this country, and I made it my home. But I sure miss those lunches. Our most recent lunch was 4 months ago at the American Club, and you can guess what he ordered. Bun, no lettuce, no onion. And he sent me an email later that day thanking me for the lunch and saying how much those lunches meant to him. And he offered to host the next one at Hooters because he loved the cheeseburgers. And while I'll miss those lunches with my friends, I'm filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude that they ever happened in the first place. Perhaps my feelings today can best be summed up by the great philosopher Dr. Seuss, who said, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened." And maybe Wayne made all of us smile, and I think all of our lives are better because of it. Thank you.
I first became aware of Wayne Graczyk in 1975. He had written his first story ever in the Japan Times. It was about Tyo Wales, infielder, and former New York Yankees third baseman Clete Boyer, who was playing out the string in Japan at the time. And Wayne wrote, Clete Boyer at age 38 still makes the impossible look easy at third base. I was in Tokyo researching a book at the Times, and I showed it to Clete Boyer, who read it, and he laughed out loud. And he said, that's nice to read, but the fact of the matter is, at this age, I know it makes the easy look impossible. But it was nice of Wayne Graczyk to say what he did. By the way, who is Wayne Graczyk? The next year, Wayne began writing regularly about Japanese baseball with his column, Baseball Bulletin, in the Japan Times. And after that, people stopped asking the question, who is Wayne Graczyk? It was about that time that he began publishing his Japan Professional Baseball Fan Handbook and Media Guide. It contained rosters and previous years' statistics and all sorts of information that he compiled himself. I first met him around that time, and he gave me a free copy of his publication. It was, in the beginning, it was a simple, short-sized publication. But over the years, he developed it and refined it, and now it's a first-class professional production, with top grade by any standard. Everyone I know already knew had to have a copy of Wayne's handbook. The foreign fans in Japan, tourists who came in, Major League Scouts. It was required reading for all the Major League teams in the United States, many of whom had ran advertisements in them. In addition to the Japan Times and the Media Guide, Wayne also served for 30 years as sports editor for the Corky Alexander's Tokyo Weekender, where he did a lot of long interviews with American players, which are interesting, and he also contributed to Baseball America. What many people don't know about Wayne, the younger people or newer arrivals, was that he went to broadcasting school, and he was a real professional behind the microphone. He called the Giants games in English for NTV for several seasons with Marty and Kyokko during an era when NTV put out bilingual telecasts of the games. I listened to him and Marty do their telecasts, and I thought they were both the height of professionalism. In fact, of all the things that Wayne was good at, his microphone work was the best of all, in my opinion. You couldn't tell the difference between Wayne and Marty and the other top announcers in the U.S., like Lon Simmons and Russ Hodges, who I grew up with in the West Coast. Wayne was in Japan almost as long as me and Marty. He saw many of the greats play in person: Shigeo Nagashima, Sadaharu, Yutaka Yanatsu, Tsuneo Horiguchi, and knew them all. He had a great memory for facts and figures, and he could tell you who hit what, what batting average, how many home runs and RBIs in what season. It was a walking baseball encyclopedia. I have personally read every column Wayne Graczyk has ever written for the Japan Times and his articles in the Tokyo Weekender, which may be a world record that Marty might tie me for, I'm not sure. Sometimes I thought he was a little bit too nice in his columns. I encouraged him to be more critical. He was around an organization like the Yomiuri Giants, which is fertile ground for scandal, as many of you know. And there, the professional baseball has had its problems with under-the-table payoffs and changing sizes of baseballs. And there are certain foreign ball players who have behaved badly here. But Wayne was a religious man, a nice guy who believed that if you couldn't say something nice about somebody, then you shouldn't say anything at all. In all the years I knew Wayne, I only saw him get angry once. And that was when I misspelled his name in the book, Ichigo. He said, "How difficult can it be to spell Graczyk?" I said, "I think it's easier for you than it is for the rest of us." But I apologized and I changed it. I fixed it in the succeeding editions. After I heard of Wayne's passing, I called Warren Marty and told him about it. And, you know, he said that he'd already knew, but he said he cried when he heard it. He said that every American baseball, his quote was, "Every American baseball player who has played here in Japan was a debt to Wayne." You knew that he loved baseball history, and he was really, really a good guy. What I remember most about Wayne, what I remember about Wayne is what everybody else remembers, is that he really liked beer, pizza, donuts, and hamburgers. His wife and his kids, and especially the game of Japanese baseball. His passing is a big loss, and we will all miss him very much. Thank you.